friends Joe and Mo and Flo say there's something that the city ought to know. Ottawa needs to have more public toilets, 'cause they can't find a place when they gotta go. Oh, life here in the capital can offer so much joy to share.
This is a tale about going, but it is here to stay. Come here to listen, but know you can go as you please. This is a tale about going as you please. Go, relieve yourself. You are privy to privacy, even if you do not have a home to call yours, because what is a restroom but a room you can call yours, even temporarily? Sometimes the confines of a stall still feel like refuge when you have had nowhere else to go, because bodies do not empty on a 9-to-5 schedule. Bodies do not come with proof of purchase when the urge to go comes. So let us facilitate a discussion on facilities. If we are made up of 60% water, are we not water closets too? And how can we think otherwise? That a lavatory should be privatized? Let us cleanse our palms in the same holy water, flush our stigma too, expel what no longer serves us, look ourselves in the reflection and see someone we can be proud of, because there will come a time when nature calls and you cannot answer with your home phone, and you will thank those who saw your trouble before you felt it coming. This is just as much about having empathy as much as it is about having bathrooms. For even if you do not use it, to know it can benefit another should be enough.
Namitha Rathinappillai is a Tamil Canadian spoken word poet, artist, and writer. She has facilitated and performed in spaces such as Urban Legends, Talum Girl, and Youth Ottawa. In 2018, a collection of her poetry was published in a book titled Dirty Laundry. And Namitha was the director of Urban Legends, an organization that supports artists of all genders, races, and ages by providing a safe space for them to write, share, and gain exposure to their poetry. And so Namitha is joining me because her poem Empotty was selected as one of the winners for GottaGo's art callout, Our Ottawa Needs Public Toilets. Thank you so much, Namitha, for joining me in this conversation.
So I can speak mainly to spoken word poetry, which is what I mainly create in, like in terms of types of art. So spoken word is definitely like my specialty, where I produce a lot of my art. And spoken word itself has its roots in Black culture and Indigenous culture and these kinds of marginalized groups where oral tradition and storytelling really are highly prioritized and valued and seen as, an effective way to communicate ideas and communicate knowledge. So I'm very blessed to, be able to participate in this art form. And I think its draw for me was always that idea of the work being autobiographical, or like having a personal connection to the work. It's not really an art form where folks write about other people or like other people's experiences. It's very autobiographical, which I think is like an interesting nuance to spoken word. So I definitely think it like lends itself well to the avenue of advocacy, because a lot of the time it's marginalized folks that are drawn to this art form, because it's the idea that, you don't need to fight for a space to tell your story or to share what's important to you. It's a space that you should feel entitled to. So I've definitely experienced that in my own creation. I've, written about my experiences as a marginalized person and have found it healing, and also have seen the ways that other folks have been able to see themselves in my work, which is really like beautiful and just never gets old. But also it works for these bigger ideas, right? Like access for public toilets. This is, an art form where folks can talk about their own personal experiences of needing that facility, of being able to portray its importance in society. And I think that art has this way of subverting this hierarchy of what information is deemed important, or how information is collected by the public. I think that, a lot of the times you think of articles or publishing in academia, and that there are tons of barriers to getting your work out there. Whereas with art, it kind of subverts that entire system. And also there's this draw of, thinking outside the box or creating, in a way that feels natural or feels comfortable. And I think that that's a draw that a lot of people are interested in the idea that like these are people that are not necessarily thinking in maybe more colonial or like Eurocentric boundaries. It's like usually something that pushes a lot more against that, again, with the history of spoken word being like deeply decolonial. So I definitely think there is a huge space for advocacy and activism in art, and I'm really blessed to be able to partake in spoken word and art form that like has its roots in that. I feel like there are some issues that this might seem silly, but are like so obvious. I don't understand why more people aren't concerned. Like, I think it's one of those things where I'm like, oh, I can't believe this is like a question, right? Like we go out in public and we need facilities. And I don't know, I just like, to me, it seemed very obvious. And also it seemed like a fun challenge to be able to create a piece about something that wasn't necessarily about like my specific identity, but about something that impacts everyone, including myself. So, I had this idea of this visual poem. I was excited about the idea of framing this poem as a call to action. And also it was just like a great learning opportunity for myself to learn more about, these specifics of like why these facilities are needed. Like obviously the baseline is, everyone deserves the right to, a dignified space to go to the bathroom. But I think more than that, you can talk about these like different, marginalized groups that might need that. So if you're someone who is chronically ill and you need, access to a bathroom, or if you're breastfeeding, or, like, I just feel like there are lots of different ways that facility can be used. And I don't know, I just found it like a really interesting topic. And also it was just, I came up with this idea and I was like, oh, this would be a fun challenge. But also I'm so grateful because it was able to, introduce me to this whole side or whole facet of advocacy that I never really thought about. As much as I would like to claim that it was, this beautiful artistic choice, it was more so just like me trying to push the boundaries of creativity. I was like, okay, what other words can I use? I felt like toilet was like so obvious. It was right there. Literally, it's the shape of the poem, right?
Yeah.
And I think it was kind of this idea of, in the same way that I wanted this poem to look at different angles of why public bathrooms are necessary, I wanted to look at different angles of how we think about toilets instead. And like that looked like, what words do we use? What connotations does it hold? What, different perspectives do we have on the need for them? What uses can they hold? So it wasn't maybe as intentional as you might be so beautifully framing it for me. Maybe because I don't come from like an advocacy background specifically about public toilets, I almost feel like I want to think about like the most radical possibility. Like, what if toilets were like a beautiful, like, part of your city? What if it was like covered in art? What if it was somewhere that like people wanted to take selfies inside of, like what would it look like to like imagine the most radical possibility? And then how do we make that happen? Because this isn't something that should be difficult. This is exactly like you said, it's a basic human right. The fact that, folks are fighting so hard for this is beautiful, but also it's deeply sad that this is something that needs to be fought for. So I feel like for me, obviously, I think like the important things is like, again, like thinking about accessibility, whether that be, issues of, folks of different genders being able to access a bathroom, folks of different abilities accessing these bathrooms. But beyond that, like, what would it look like for us as a society to value and find beauty in what should be necessary?
But when you gotta go and got no place to go, well, it can be a very upsetting affair. Nobody would ever have to feel embarrassed if we had a toilet system like in Paris. Ottawa needs to have more public toilets, 'cause when we gotta go, we gotta go. Sometimes there's no time to stall when you hear nature call.